you. And you know what? And then it finally.
But seriously, want to welcome everyone, students and the adults, to this forum. And it's a pleasure to introduce Mr. Anthony Davis. But just take my seat and be quiet.
Thank you, sir, for that introduction. So, first, I want to thank you all for coming out on a Saturday night. I know there's a lot of other things that you all could be doing on a Saturday night, like preparing for finals, things of that sort. So, I want to thank you all for coming out. Just briefly, my name is Anthony Davis, Jr. I'm serving as the college campus coordinator for the Doug Jones for Senate campaign. So we've been crisscrossing this state, visiting different colleges around the state, and tonight we wanted to come to Tuskegee and also bring a special guest with us.
You want to say a few words for us?
Sure.
I'm on your turf.
First of all, it's great to be on Tuskegee's campus, and it's great to see you all here. I think you know that all elections have consequences, but this election is really consequential. We have so much at stake. I think that never before has this country and this state been so at the forefront. I mean, all eyes are watching Alabama. And we can decide to go backwards with one candidate or continue to move forward with another candidate. And I hope that we want to move forward, right? When I think about growing up in Alabama, I mean, and going out into the world, I've been proud to be from Alabama. But we all, as ambassadors from Alabama, have to make sure we explain our sort of painful past. And there's only one candidate that actually moves this needle forward, and then there's another one that actually moves it backwards, right? And it harkens us back to the days of George Wallace, frankly. And we've made so much progress since then. And I think that it's in all of our best interests to try to find, and we have that in Doug, that to really know how important your vote is. I think that when I think about this district, it's ground zero for the fight for the vote.
It is.
And nowhere do we know how important it is to exercise that right than in Alabama. And we have a chance on Tuesday, December 12th, to elect Doug Jones. Yay! As our next president. And there's a stark contrast, right? On the one hand, you have a man who held the highest legal office in our state as our state Supreme Court justice. Not once, but twice. And he was removed for what? Failing to follow the law. And on the other hand, you have Doug Jones, who has spent his life fighting for the most vulnerable among us. I know all of you know that he really went out of his way as a U.S. attorney and federal prosecutor to find those perpetrators that killed the 4 little girls in the bombing of 6th Street Baptist Church. So we have a clear choice on December 12th, and I hope that we'll go out and exercise our right to vote and vote for Doug Jones. So I hope that you as students will mobilize and not just go and vote yourself, but take others with you to the polls. It's going to be about getting out the vote, and never before has Alabama needed us to really step up. And a great rising star in the Democratic Party and in American politics, but I also wanted to thank him. He's a leading voice on criminal justice reform. He's a leading voice on making sure that we have proper infrastructure. He visited several of my counties. Lowndes County is in my district. My mama grew up in Lowndes County. And there's no way, this day and age, that we should have some of the problems that we have in rural Alabama. It's unacceptable. So I need a partner. I need a partner in Washington that's going to help me fight for that kind of infrastructure, for better sewer, water and sewer. And if this president wants to have an infrastructure bill, I need someone who's going to roll up their sleeves and work across the aisle and make sure that we get the resources we need to correct that problem. Same is true with broadband. I don't have to tell you in Macon County. It's important. I mean, we can't connect with the world without having broadband.
Amen.
And we need, we need a senator that's going to fight for all of us, and that's going to be Doug Jones.
So I don't have to worry about selling anybody here. The one thing I do have to do is which is really important to me, and then we're going to switch to having a conversation and dialogue where anything you want to ask me, I'm very serious. Like, hey, Cory, is it true that you were an All-American football player? The older I get, the better I was. I want you to know that.
It's called revisionist history.
The older I get, the better I was. But I did play football in a different league. I played football in the Pac-10. Anything we want to talk about, anything at all, going on in current events, going on in world events, going on in my past, and I can phone a friend Terry. But the one thing I do want to say is what you can do to help the campaign right now. And so this is what I've learned. I just came from campaigning in Atlanta last weekend, and there was a mayor's races, because I'm telling you right now, mayors are the most important political leaders in America. I cannot tell you that enough. And I'm sorry, Mr. President, I know that you're president. You're my favorite president right now. But I went to go campaign for the mayor of Atlanta. It was a tough race. And there was an African-American woman running, who I went down to campaign for. And she won that race by 700 votes. Wow. Just think about that, how close that was for a city as big as Atlanta. 700 votes. I stand here right now because a few dozen votes in my very first race for city council, it's just a few dozen votes that got me into a runoff that I was eventually able to win. So we're actually in a climate right now where what you as an individual does matters. If you all say, hey, I'm just going to go vote, that's not enough. If it's just saying I can vote, that's just not enough. I'm hoping, what I'm really trying to get out of this is that everybody here try to motivate other people to go out and vote. That's really, because the fact that you're here tonight shows me a level of commitment that is really great. But what I really need from you all is to take some personal responsibility for dragging, cajoling other people to vote. And I'm telling you right now, you have power. Like if somebody's stepping to you trying to get your phone number, say, nah, not gonna happen. Somebody wants to, look at your notes. No. Whatever you can do in the next 3 days to get people out to vote, that really makes a difference. And you should think about what you're gonna do. Posting things on social media actually makes a difference. There's been studies done by political scientists that the most persuasive things to do you can do is also often shame your own circle of friends by posting things on Facebook, asking people. And then other things you can do is say, hey, for example, you're going to vote, sir? What's your name? Man, you got some bass in that voice. I just busted it out. What's your name? Mr. Jones. So for example, when you ask somebody if they're going to vote, that's actually not enough. What we've found from looking at all the data, asking persons when are they going to vote? What's your plan to vote? They'll tell people to make a plan, because a lot of times I thought I was going to do something, and then suddenly it's like 9 o'clock at night and I realized I didn't do it because I didn't have a plan fixed in mind, or something happened. Say, vote in the morning. Are you going to vote in the morning? How are you going to do it? Ask the person who says they're going to vote to walk through it a little bit in their mind and make a plan. That helps them to lock it down even more. Okay, there's few things I love enjoying more than just talking to college students and being on college campuses and talking to you about what you're concerned about, what your issues are, what maybe you might have questions about, life paths and the like. So let's just assure, can I get a hallelujah, amen? Everybody's gonna vote for Doug Jones?
Hallelujah, amen.
Thank you very much. Can I get a hallelujah, amen? Everybody's going to make sure that they bring other people to the poll?
Hallelujah, amen.
And the last thing is, because all y'all who here has an Instagram account? Okay, keep your hand up if you follow me on your Instagram account. I'm so upset! Okay, so follow me on your Instagram account. Do you have an Instagram account?
Absolutely.
Come on, you probably post some great stuff.
I do.
You do? Okay. So follow us on an Instagram account. And I'm going to open my Instagram stories here. My fingerprint isn't working here. I don't want her to see my code. Okay. Okay. So, make sure you're posting on social media. Are you going to post? Can I get a hallelujah, amen? You're going to post on social media about the race.
Hallelujah.
I didn't see this brother right here. I'm sorry. Hallelujah. All right, that's good. What's your name? Cedric. All right. Cedric speaks with punchiness. You speak with depth. All right. So let's go. Let's have a conversation. And is there any question? If not, I'm going to start telling you some stories from mine when I was in college.
I have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry. This young lady first, and then the gentleman over here.
I have a question about education, well, 2 questions. The first question is, what can I expect from the Senate to do with people like me? Our parents make enough money on paper, so we're not eligible for any federal funding, but in our reality, they can barely afford to send us to state colleges. That's my first question. And then also I'm planning to go to grad school. And I know there was a recent tax bill that hinders grad students because now it taxes the money that they get. How can I have faith in the Senate that will not pass so I can have a future?
Yes, good question.
So you've actually got two people that are very important because we have different perspectives on this. One is from the House, and I have a lot more hope about the House, actually.
Do you?
Well, in the sense that in 2018, you guys are going to
We're going to take back the House.
Right.
We're just going to take back the House. I mean,
it'll be harder, and this election in Alabama can help us. So let's just be clear right now. So I want to can I take a step back for a second? So we used to be a country that really was about lowering barriers to higher education. Now, I say that with the exception of, it's a lot more difficult for African Americans, but in the 40s, 50s, 60s, we really believed that we're going to try to get as many people to college as possible. We used to be, we're no longer, the #1 country on the planet Earth with the highest percentage of people graduating from college. And it was one of the reasons why our economy exploded and did incredibly well. Now, unfortunately, that has changed. We're no longer the #1. We're no longer in the top 5. We are falling dramatically, and other countries are trying to out-America us by lowering the barriers to college. In Germany, it's between 0 and 4% of median income to go to college. In Canada, it's about 6%. In England, about 7%. In America, it's about 52% of median income to go to college. It's outrageous, the cost of college. And what's that doing is it's hurting our economy by inhibiting the ability of people to continue their higher education. And worse than that, the #1 debt in America is no longer credit card debt. It's no longer mortgage debt. It is student loans. It is student loans. So we've created this environment where young college people are coming out of college where they used to be able to get quickly into the workforce and quickly buy a home. It actually has now inhibited their ability to make larger life purchases, which is doing what to our economy? It's hurting our economy. And on top of that, this is something that I think is really egregious. Say you have student loans at a high interest rate. If you have, and the interest rate goes down, most other types of debt, you can do what to that interest rate? Refinance it. You can refinance to lower your overall payments. But can you do that with student loans? No. So we are doing so many things that are working against the United States of America, working against our long-term economic growth, hurting families and putting students like you in a real bind. And so you want to know specifically what can we do in the Senate. Now I want to be clear with you. Nothing will change unless we do. That's the first thing I just want you to know. I've learned this in life the hard way. Nothing will change unless we do. And right now, this larger problem of student loan is a result, in my opinion, of the folks thinking that democracy is a spectator sport. Too many people sitting on the sidelines. What do I mean by that? One of the best things, first of all, I miss Obama. And listen to me, I miss her husband too. and now, the best speech that her husband gave, I thought his last year in office, was to Howard University. Okay? Not Tuskegee, I understand that. But Howard University.
Well, she gave a great speech to Tuskegee.
She gave a speech to Tuskegee. So at Howard, he said to folks, he goes, look, if millennials voted at the same level as baby boomers, you would literally change Congress over in the next election.
That's right.
Transform it. Because even if you're a Republican or Democratic millennial, you believe in things like affordable college, you believe in things like climate change, even social issues like marriage equality. These are things that millennials are so much more progressive about than it comes to other folks. Literally, all you have to do is millennials from states all throughout the South, West, Midwest, East. It would transform Congress if millennials just voted at that level. There's a funny line from him that says, look, Obama's line was, look, you don't have to occupy anything, just vote, and you will create changes. And so the first thing I want to just admit to you is, some of the first pieces of legislation I tried to work on was things to make college more affordable, to be able to refinance debt, to be able to do a lot of the things that I think are really important. When I was mayor of my city, we held these massive classes called Higher Ed, Financial Aid University. Where's my former chief staff? This is my former chief staff when I was mayor. He used to sit like a chief staff, now he's in the private sector, he's like, just chilling, baby. Just chilling, baby. And Cory, I'm making it rain now. I'm He said, I'm no longer a public servant where I'm struggling to make ends meet and pay for my daughter who's going to college very soon. Anyway, that's Mo. And one of the things we did was we created Financial University because there are literally tens of thousands of Americans that don't go to college just because they can't get through the financial aid forms themselves. So I did a raft of bills I was involved in changing this, but we couldn't get it through the Senate because the Senate is a body that, even if you have 51 senators, they can filibuster just about any bill unless you get over 60 senators. And so it's very hard to change these things. And the Republican Party, in my opinion, not my opinion, this is fact, if you look at the Senate, is really veering away from this idea of lowering the cost of college. And so your specific question is, this tax bill is outrageous.
Outrageous.
Outrageous. It is literally not a tax bill for the middle class. When you have a tax bill that's going to cost $1.5 trillion, and over $1 trillion of it is a kick to the top 1% of this country and the wealthiest corporations, under a false, broken theory that somehow that's going to trickle down. And we know that's a broken theory because we're at an 80-year high in America for corporate profits. And what are corporations doing with those profits? Are they increasing worker pay?
No.
No. What
Giving it to
corporations-
their shareholders.
Shareholders and stock buyback. So we already know what's going to happen with this money. It's not going to create a boom. As opposed to saying, I'm going to take $1 trillion, and I would be for this, take $1 trillion of cost of tax breaks to target it towards things that are going to help the struggling middle-class families. And so that's my frustration. One of the reasons I'm down here, one of the many reasons I'm down here, is because we maybe can stop this tax bill. If we get a Democratic senator from this state to get to the Senate in time to stop it, if we can convince one more senator to change their vote, we had one Republican already, then we can stop taking really valuable deductions and maybe get some other ones in. And the last part of that question before I pass it off to my partner here is your question about affording graduate school, being able to deduct graduate school loans. What was that part of it?
No, it's, that now this bill
Yeah, go
will
ahead.
tax stipends
Yes, that's it.
as
Yes.
income.
Yes.
And so before, it was not taxable. I mean, what I hate most about the House bill, it is an attack not only on the middle class, but on higher education, period. The fact that they do away with deductibility on student loans. What? I mean, and they they're now gonna tax the endowment of colleges. I mean, it's just outrageous, along with the fact that graduate students will now have to pay a tax on their stipends, which used to be considered education, right?
Yes.
And now it's gonna be considered income. So, look, we have to vote like our life depends on it, because it does, right? I mean, you've heard that, but I'm really telling you the truth. And when people look at the dysfunction that's in the Senate and in the House, it's a reflection of the fact that the American public is allowing us to do that. You have to start voting for folks who are willing to do the hard work, to roll up the sleeves and sit and look across the aisle from someone like Ted Cruz and work with them. That's what you need. We've made compromise a dirty word, and we've got to stop that. And I think that sometimes we younger folks think that you have to wait until you become, you get that corporate job in order to start making a difference. But I want you to know that it was John Lewis as a college student, right? They started SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And it was young folks that literally band together and through their efforts, nonviolent, but through their efforts, changed the face of this nation and this world, literally changed the face. Black elected officials didn't exist until we started voting in numbers, right? Right? So I think that the best way we can make college more affordable is start getting state representatives, like Nakima here, who just got elected to the Senate in Georgia. Yay! Start electing our state representatives. First of all, you gotta start with the mayors, city council folks. I mean, at every level of government, it matters. And you need to amplify your voice. And that's what happens in college campuses, that you guys can amplify your voice by working together, by mobilizing.
Okay, more questions.
Yep.
More questions.
My question,
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Forgive me. I was trying to focus on the students, but you are a student of life.
that's right.
Go ahead. Give it to
That's
me.
where I'm coming from. You are bold, brave, and audacious.
I should have called on you earlier.
And as an old man, going on 80,
Are you serious? How old are you, sir? Do you mind me asking?
79, going on 80.
Going on in.
Too many black men cannot identify courage, cannot focus on principle, and with the climate in America, threats, intimidation, and every other kind of pressure. How can young black men make a decision to stand for something? And once they identify what that something is going to be, do like you, develop it into a set of principles, and then stand on those principles, irregardless to what the opposition is. Where do you get the true grit from?
That's deep. Look, I think that this goes for young men and young women that are here. We're probably equally. He's a baby boomer. I'm a X-gener, and you guys are millennials. So we're sort of the three generations that are sort of on the stage right now in American history. You're absolutely right. By the way, every great movement from the uprisings in Soweto and apartheid movement to the Tiananmen Square to we can go through. It's always young people. It's always students, kids, 20% of it all. I just don't think this idea that you were somehow born a leader. I think that life is about struggling and trying to stay committed to your values, trying to fight through and just continuing to develop and sharpen your axe. But again, and Mo knows this because we started. I ran for office in my 20s and was the youngest person ever elected in my city, and I just threw myself out there, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I did have slips of integrity. I wrote about some of them in my own book. But you learn and you keep fighting and you keep going. The hardest thing for me to fight against is myself, I have to say, even today. It really is. Because this world is brilliantly designed to distract you from your purpose. It is brilliantly designed to distract you from your calling, from what God sees from you, right, through faith. And that's the hard thing. And the most important conversations you have in any day are the conversations you have with yourself. What messages are you sending yourself? What's the dialogue going on in your head? And I want to just give you one story. Can I tell you the mostly true story? Because it's more fun, the mostly true version, than the absolute true version. Can I give you the mostly true version? It's a lot more fun.
Yes.
The issues are the same, but it's the mostly true version. Okay, so this is the mostly true version. Okay, so I was the most overrated high school football player ever in the history of the United States of America. Anybody know who Emmitt Smith is?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you go back to the 1987 high school USA Today All-American team, I'm on that team, as is Emmitt Smith. So I was like, Emmitt Smith though was amazing, even though he played for an inferior team. He should have played for the Giants. I'm from Jersey, I have to say that. But I was overrated. I was like, there's a great song, some of you all don't know, we are the hip hop generation. Like that's our gift to the gift to the universe, hip hop. I know there's some Motown folks up in here.
Yeah.
I know I'm where the Commodores are.
There you go.
But there was this great group called Public Enemy. And once said this wonderful song, "Don't Believe the Hype." Okay, that was me in high school football. So now I get a college scholarship to play football in the Pac-10, Stanford University. As I said to the group I spoke to last, I got into Stanford because of a 4.0, 1,600. 4.0 yards per carry, 1,600 receiving. And I get there, and I am now defeated before I begin, because I am insecure about my ability to compete academically at this university. I'm already telling myself stuff that these folks are better than me. That is like that. We hypnotize ourselves. We put out mantras every single day. We say things over and over and over again. If I hear one child tell me I'm not good at math, that is a conclusion. Then they are not good at math. If I tell people this all the time, I can't lose weight. You can do anything you want to. I hate it. It sounded like a cliche when I was growing up, but it is so true. It is the stories we tell ourselves that matter. so much. It's like that frog that fell into this, and fell down into this pot, and all his friends were standing up there. He's treading water, but they knew he was going to die. Eventually, he's going to get tired and sink. And they're screaming at him, just give up, man. You're done. Give it up. And this frog is just like, oh my gosh, I can't hear well. What are you saying? And the way they're yelling and screaming, he thinks they're cheering him on. So he keeps treading that rock. And eventually, he finds solid ground underneath him and hops out. He didn't realize he had fallen in some cream and he turned it into butter. There's always, don't listen to what other people say, and don't be your worst enemy, which is usually the case. So here I am, I'm on Stanford's campus. Now you arrive, this is the summer of 1987, you arrive early, because school starts up, we were on the quarter system there, so school didn't start like end of September, October. You arrive, you got the games early. You guys know this, college football starts in August. So we show up, and I'm this kid, and the whole summer, I was doing nothing. The 5 Ps, I forgot. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I'm just sitting back getting dumb, fat, and happy with my friends, hanging by the pool, not trained. And I get out there, and I suddenly realize when I get to Stanford, that this is like Division I college football, and they don't obey the rules of physics, because if you have a big body, a big mass body, it's supposed to be slow. But these guys were just fast. They just defied the laws of nature, and I was this guy that came with all this hype, and so all these upper class guys are trying to take me down a few notches. And by the end of the first week, I used to think I was the most confident football player in the world, but they had beat me up so bad that literally I had lost all my confidence. I was dropping passes. I used to catch one hand with my eyes closed. Now things were hitting my chest, rolling down. The coaches were so upset at me. I watched myself at the top of the depth chart when summer training began, 3 days, and I just kept getting lower and lower. Finally, I had to dig a hole to let my hands over. And then, I'm embarrassed now, because now I'm just insecure and nervous on the football field, insecure about school that's going to start up, and I'm lying to my mom. She's like, how's it going? I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm loving it out here. But I wasn't. I was homesick. I'm 3,000 miles away from home. And so things are getting bad. Now, the problem also is your state of mind is so much more powerful than your body is your spiritual state of where you are. Yeah. Like if you have confidence, and I've done this with public speaking before. When I'm nervous, I get terrible speeches. But if I'm confident, I stand up with strength and confidence, things go well. But I'm now nervous, bad. And the other problem thing is you begin to get self-destructive. You begin to do things that create the conclusion that you're already thinking about in your mind. That's why I think people sometimes turn to alcohol or drugs or behavior that they know is self-destructive. And so my self-destructive thing I was doing on this field was the end of one play, and this guy, and I hit, and I just lose it. Because I'm not in a strong peace of mind. I pick a fight with somebody. And I can tell you my entire life, I can probably count the number of times I picked a fight, started a fight on 3 fingers. And so I'm telling you, I got so upset with this guy. The whistle had blown, but I reeled back, and I punched this man as hard as I possibly can. Now this was the problem. I'll show you how self-destructive I was. The man that I picked the fight with, his nickname on the field was Dr. Death. And Dr. Death was 6'8". 6'8", 350. And some of you guys are advanced math. You know when the body of mass is that big, it's not 350, it's 350. And I punched this guy with everything I had. He had this big belly, my whole arm disappeared in his guts. And so now I'm trying to dislodge my arm to continue my assault on the unassaultable man. And he looks down at me, and I can tell at first he's a little bit bemused, like nobody steps to Dr. Death. And he suddenly realizes, oh my God, this man is serious. And so he picks up his fist, and that is a euphemism. It is not a fist. This is like a side of beef. He picks up a steer, and he comes back and it wasn't even fast. It was just slow motion. And I look at it, and it comes, and he hits me upside my head so hard that 3,000 miles away in New Jersey, my mama felt the pain. She was in the supermarket whoa. What happened? What happened? And my legs, which had been loyal to me for 18 years, I was a hard guy to take down. They look up at me and say, yo man, we're out. I fell right on my back. Now you think that the fight is over, right? One guy hits another guy. And even though I had that protective gear, I know I had traumatic brain injury. I'm now on the ground. And you think the fight's over yet. But it's not. Dr. Death, 6'8", stands up like this, puts his arms out, and falls. Now, he hits me with a force that I had never felt before in my life. And all the oxygen in my lungs looked around and saw where my legs went and just kind of hit me. And I tried to scream, but I had no oxygen in my lungs, so all I could do was go. And now, thank God, there is a merciful Lord up in heaven that all these people rush the field to break up this, fight. It's really not a fight, it's like a slaughter. And then they try to lift him off me, but he weighs 350. And so they roll this man and literally successfully break every bone in my body. And so he gets up. One guy is holding me back, one big linebacker holding me back, and the rest of them, it takes 5 guys trying to hold this man. He's launching men into orbit as he's trying to break free to come get me. And I'm sitting there oh my God, what's happened? And then the dumb thing, and this is why I'm telling you, women are so much superior than men in so many ways.
Say it again.
One of the reasons why is because they're not saddled with all of this testosterone-laden ego. And so my ego, my rest of my body is done, but the ego jumps up, grabs hold of my mouth, and starts talking. And starts literally saying, let him go, I'll kill him. And the rest of me is say what? And I'm like, shut up, what are you doing? And so the fight is over, thank God. Everybody goes back to the gym to just break and shower and then go to the training table, but I'm done. I'm quitting Stanford. I'm out of here. I'm homesick. I've been busted and disgusted. I now am insecure that I can't compete in the classroom against a bunch of eggheads. I'm just worried, so I run back to my room, I slam the door, and I'm sitting down with this, with my head down. I have not taken a shower, so I'm smelling funky, and I'm in an emotional, psychological state that's called a funk, so technically I was in a funky funk, and I'm sitting there in this terrible state, this funky funk, and then suddenly I hear a knock at the door, and I don't answer because I'm in my funky funk. Thank you very much. I don't answer. I'm not talking to the world, but I forgot to lock the door, and I hit the doorknob turn, and I see out of my peripheral vision these size 25 feet, and I realized Dr. Death was making a house call. And Dr. Death comes into the room, and it's shaking as he walks, and he puts his hand on me, and that's another euphemism. It was not a hand, it was like a paw. And he puts it on me, and he goes, yo, what's your problem? And I didn't say anything. I was just praying, no conversation, maybe he get bored and leave. But then he changes his question. He goes, what do you want? And I'll never forget. It was for a second, I lost my situation. He asked me a question. I look up at him and I said, I want to be a great football player. And in an instant, I thought this man, I thought that he had sympathy in his eyes, but he did not. He suddenly looked downright medieval, and he says to me, yo man, hold your breath. And I said, what? And he goes, hold your blankety blank breath. And so what did I do? I went, now this goes on. I'm holding my breath. He's staring at me, and this man had these nostrils that were so wide, and they're flaring like this, and he's looking angry. He's starting to shake his head. And then after a minute or two, I gotta breathe. So I'm about to breathe, and he just breaks loose, and he starts screaming at me. Don't you breathe. If you breathe, I'm going to kill you. If you breathe, I'm going to kill your mama and your mama's mama. And he goes back to my family tree all the way back to our Alabama days. And so now I have the worst calculation I hope none of you ever have, which is really what's the best way to die? Is it asphyxiation or having this man kill me? And so I fall to my feet. I fall to my knees and I'm starting to pass out. And I'm making all these deals with God, and you get very religious when you're close to death. I want you to know that. And then, as I fall flat on my stomach, he screams at me. He goes, "Breathe, Cory Booker, breathe." And I tell you, I sucked in with the ferocity of a nuclear-powered vacuum cleaner. The little throw rug on the floor went up into my mouth, and I curled up. All my problems had disappeared. All I was thinking about was that breath, getting the oxygen out there in there. And as I'm sitting there in the fetal position, just breathing really hard, and this big man walks out the door, opens up, walks out, then he sticks his huge watermelon-sized head in, and he says, "Cory Booker." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "As soon as you decide you want to be great, as badly as you want to take that breath, then you'll be the best there ever was."
Wow.
I suddenly had an epiphany. Here I was, God had given me this immense set of blessings, and I was giving up at the first sign of adversity. I hadn't even started a class yet, and I was already surrendering to the notion that I wasn't good enough. I got up from there and I wrote something. I kept this all the way through college, graduate school. I got a Rhodes Scholarship to study at Oxford. I lost it somewhere in England, but it was my first goals. I wrote down my goals. There's been studies that people who write down their goals on a regular basis. I got so good in college, I had whiteboards. My roommates used to make fun of me. I put them in code. Everything that I was living for. Because if you don't have a purpose in life,
That's right.
okay, you're going to get easily distracted and lost on the way. I just realized and I decided in that moment, what is it I'm willing to sacrifice for? What is it I'm willing to give up for? If you want to think bad enough to work hard every day and every night for it, if life seems useless without it, I just started thinking obsessively, what would I go to any ends of the earth? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And it wasn't future like one day I'll be a United States Senator. No, it was immediate. Why am I here? And I decided it was two things. Do well on the football field, do well in school. And I wrote a commitment to myself. Nobody's going to outwork me. You may be smarter than me, more gifted athletically than me, but nobody's going to outwork me. And I remember putting all this stuff down, all these commitments, all my values. And the next day after practice, everybody went back to the gym. I went to the weight room. We had this weight coach. His name was Sarge. He was like 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide. He was just like one block of granite, and he had muscles in his neck. He was one of those guys who couldn't talk that well. I said, "Sarge, I want to be the strongest wide receiver on the team." And he goes, and literally, I started working out after practice. Guess who the only other person in the gym was with me usually? Dr. Deb. You see, there's a great black female author who once said, if you want to fly, you got to give up the stuff that holds you down. Most people aren't willing to give up something to get something. There's not a person in this room right here, including me, that couldn't be working harder for your goal. When I was in college, I was so obsessed with what God had put me there to do. What was my divine purpose? Again, I couldn't tell you what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I knew right now I was there for a reason. And so I said this, if I do the things that other people do, I'll get the results that other people get. But if I'm willing to be different, dare to be different, and why are you here? Everyone is born an original, but most die copies. So many people spend their life trying to fit in when God is calling you to stand out. How are you daring to be different? And that's why I thought in college, I'm going to be different. So on Thursday nights, Friday nights, or other people go to parties, I would go to the library. I'd still sometimes around midnight roll into the party, and people the next day couldn't realize what time I got there, didn't know, whatever. Okay? When a paper was due on the 7th, I would finish it on the 1st. And go to my TA, find out who grades the papers, and show them my paper, say, hey, this is a rough draft. Really, I poured my heart into it. And then they would say, this is pretty good, Cory, but I changed this and changed this and changed this. I would change those things, hand it back in, what would I get? An A. I was all about sacrifice, because I know this, and you guys know this. The greatest people that I've met in my life are those that know that sacrifice is actually about getting more. It's not about having less. Every person I know, from Tyler Perry, the people that we put up on the high, from Oprah, Mark Zuckerberg, I have found something consistent about them. They're willing to be different. They're willing to be teased for their differences. They're willing to be talked about for their differences. They do things other people don't do, and they give a whole bunch of stuff up. For me, Mark Zuckerberg didn't have a TV. I'm like, you don't have a TV in your home. And he's like, most people spend 4 or 5 hours watching TV. I could learn a new language in that time. I could learn how to code. The issue is never can you not do something. It's what are you willing to sacrifice for it? Now this is the rub that I found the older I got. This world is suffering right now because we're not sacrificing. It is really suffering. Terry was talking about some of our rural counties. I toured Alabama, and I saw injustices that hurt me, but I knew about them because I have the same injustices in urban New Jersey, where kids still have lead poisoning and they don't have access to clean water. We have such common pain in this country, but we don't have a common sense of purpose. And so this gentleman asks me, I am no different than you. I promise you, most of the students in this room are more naturally smart than I am. I promise you that. I'm a slow reader. I sometimes have to read things 2 and 3 times just to get the comprehension. But the thing that distinguishes me, especially in my 20s and 30s, was that I was willing to do things other people would never do. And the only last thing I'll say about this is the part of my life that has been the greatest gift to me, confoundingly so, is that the more I have tried to be of service to other people, the more God seems to increase my bounty. And I'm going to do this last story about it, and then we'll go one more question, because now you all got to get to study. But I just think that we all have to not wait until tomorrow to do something for other folk. And in college, we have lots of opportunities to just do random acts of kindness. Everybody, college student here knows somebody who's struggling with something. Sometimes an anonymous note. I've gotten them in my life of encouragement. Hey, I'm a little uncomfortable to tell you who I am, but I've been watching the way you've done this, this, and this. I just want you to know I really respect you. You may not know it, but you're inspiring me. Or, hey, I see you're having a hard time right now. You know, whatever it is. Every day, God gives you ways to give back. The biggest thing you can do in any day, it's not going to be the election or the big speech. That's important. Doug Jones, don't forget. Tuesday. But I've learned in my life that the biggest thing that you can do in any day is a small act of kindness, decency, or love. So this is the story. I'm this guy that preaches love. Terry had to sit through a speech I just gave talking about love. I think that this kindness, generosity, I preach it all the time. But you get no points for what you preach. You get points for how you live. And so what I'm telling you right now, his message to me, sometimes God says, you're getting so big for your britches, I need to show you some humility, and I need to show you what life is all about. And so every day, right now, you guys could be doing something to alleviate suffering. You could be doing something to lift somebody up. You could be doing something to encourage somebody. You could do something after finals, say, you know what? We don't have that much money, but let's all go volunteer someplace. Let's go down to Roy Jones's campaign headquarters. We hear Cory talking about getting people. Why don't I go down and be one of those people who tries to drag people to vote? Because I can't expect me to get college loan forgiveness or whatever unless I do something about it. Let's ask one more question, and then you all
5-minute answer.
And most like you gotta drive to Birmingham, you gotta go to church in the morning, because Cory, Lord knows he needs some Jesus. One more question from anybody. First we'll prioritize the young, and she's young, and she raised her hand. Go ahead.
Okay, once a good person has been elected into office, what are the best ways to hold these individuals accountable?
You cannot stop being in elected leaders' spaces. You really can't, no matter how good they are. And Terry and I could attest to you that we really benefit by people letting us, and I don't care if they're angry at us or they yell at us. I learn every day from my constituents. I'm one of those people who goes on and reads my Twitter comments, because I get articles and things like that.
I don't do that, but I do read.
So let me give you the worst moment of my political career. One of the worst moments. I told you about this election I won when I was in my 20s. I'm now a city council person. And Mo's getting comfortable. But real quick, I'll do this as the quickest version I'll do the quickest version as I can. Mo, calm down. You gotta have friends in your life. They're gonna call you out. That's Mo. He ain't coming on the next trip. To me, as new on my team, she's not at that point yet where she's comfortable saying, man. But this is the lowest point of my political career. One of the lowest points. I probably had 4 or 5. I'm now elected, and I get elected in the Central Ward of Newark. I still live in the Central Ward of Newark. It's one of the poorest sections, financially poor, because it is rich with character, rich with spirit, rich with dignity. This is one of the greatest places on planet Earth, the Central Ward of Newark, New Jersey. I'm living in the projects, high-rise projects. The tenant president of the building is one of the women, so often women, one of the great leaders in Newark, New Jersey, a woman named Miss Virginia Jones. She's tough as nails. She's the person when I showed up with my Yale, I was a Yale law student, I thought I was something special, I had that swagger, and she was the one that busted me down and showed me, boy, you may have got your BA from Stanford, but you better come to class, because I'm going to teach you your PhD right here in Newark. And she taught me something awesome. She's an amazing woman, tough as nails. She was tenant president of the buildings the entire time they were up. I lived in the shadow of where they used to stand. And now I get elected. She changed my life. I thought I was going to be a nonprofit lawyer. And she changed my life. She said, you're running for city council. I'm now a city council person. But I get a city council person. If some of you have a chance on Netflix, give up TV, but if you're still watching it, watching it on Netflix. It's an Oscar-nominated movie called Street Fight about my first run for mayor that ended up winning the Tribeca Film Festival. It got nominated for an Oscar. It lost to a movie called March of the Dagnap Penguins. That was the original title, March of the Dagnap Penguins. But long story short is, it's a horrible first year. The mayor of the city sees me as a threat. I have terrible things happening to me. I'm getting outvoted all the time, like 8-1 on the city council. I'm getting tickets on my car everywhere I park. I park with the other city council people, ticket on my car. I'm losing my driver's license. Somehow the heater in my office broke. It was always pumping out heat in the summer. I mean, everything was going wrong. I'm getting warned by police that I'm being followed by the police officers. The state police came in because my phones were being tapped. I mean, every crazy thing you can imagine. It was a very hard first year in office. And I'm getting nothing done. And I'm annoyed because I'm getting nothing done. One day I get this call from Elaine Sewell, tenant president in Garden Spires. This call that the drug dealers had did an incident where they tried to light the guard booth on fire. There was violence. Guards fled. And she calls me up. She says, "You got to do something." And I'm like, "I can't do anything." She's like, "What do you mean you can't do something? Why we elect you?" And Terry and I feel like this way sometimes when we're in coffee. And I said, "Look, I voted 8-1. Heck." She goes, "Well, get the police up here." I go, "Look, I can't even get the police to stop ticketing my car." And then she says something to me that's one of the most painful things to hear, but I hear it, we hear it. Yeah. "Well, why did we elect you in the first place?" And now I'm angry, and I do something I should have never done, but I raise my voice at one of my elders. I'm very ashamed about this. Raising my voice, we start yelling at each other, and I hang up the phone. And I go home. All I want to do now is get home. I'm going home back to Brick Towers. I live in the top floor of these projects. I'm going home to hang out in a central embrace with my two best friends, Ben and Jerry. And I'm on my way home, and there's Miss Jones, the tenant president of my buildings. And I don't want to see her. Have you ever, there's like this one time, sometimes you're just not in the mood for wisdom and mothering. You just don't want it. You just want Ben and Jerry. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can get around her without her seeing me, but there's no way because she's like that hawk that sees everything. It's some power that some people have. And so I get up there and I decide I'm just going to try to walk past, brush past her with just a quick hello. So I rush past her and I'm like, "Hey, Miss Jones." And I walk past her. She goes, "Boy, don't you just walk past me." and I stop. And then I turn around. She must have read my spiritual state of mind. And so she looks at me and she says, "Come give Miss Jones a hug." And I'm so like not in the mood for a hug. So I walk over and I hug her in the most insincere way. This way some of you do when you break up with somebody and you say you're still going to be friends and you're hugging somebody like that. Why y'all laughing? You know what I'm talking about? And so I just hug, and then I turn around to walk away, and she grabs me by the arm and she goes, "Tell Miss Jones what's wrong." And that's it. She pushed my button. I'm going to let her have it. She wants to know what's wrong. She wants to know what's wrong. And I just started telling her what's wrong. Why did I ever get into politics? You can't get anything done in politics. I started telling her all about getting outvoted 8-1, the mayor's being mean to me, and I'm just like whining at her nonstop about all the things that were going wrong. And then I finally get to Miss Elaine Sewell, and I start complaining about her. She calls me up, she wants me to fix this, but I can't, it's a nightmare up there, I don't know what to do. I must have repeated that 3 times. I don't know what to do about Miss Sewell. And then she looks at me like she got struck by lightning and God had just spoken. She goes, "Oh my gosh." I go, "What?" She goes, "I know what you should do." And I'm like, "You do?" And she goes, "Yes, I know what you should do." I said, "Tell me." And she goes like this. "Yeah, I know what you should do." I said, "I heard that, Miss Jones. What should I do?" She goes like this. "Yeah, I know exactly what you should do." I'm like, "Miss Jones, I don't have time to play. Tell me what I should do. And then she looks at me, she goes, you? And I lean forward, she leans forward. Like she's about to tell me the gem, the wisdom, the power. And I go, yes. She goes, you should? And I go, yes. And she goes, you should do something. Like, that's it? She goes, yeah, do something. And I'm done. I am so angry. I turn around, I storm into my buildings. I think God has dominion over the world, except for one place. I really think that the devil controls public housing authority elevators. Because it must have read my mood, so it's not working, so I hike 16 flights of stairs. I sit down in my room, I'm so angry, I'm huffing and puffing and sweating, and there's a Bible right there, and I decide just to open it up, and where does it open to? It says, if you have strength the size of a mustard seed, faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. But then most people don't know the next one. So the next verse says, but sometimes you gotta fast and pray. And then I just started almost giggling to myself. Here I was at another point in my life. I'm about to quit, I'm about to give up. I think I failed before I've really done everything I could about a situation. And so I get this idea, and I call my staffer up, a guy named Jermaine James, which Mo knows really well. But I said, we're gonna get a tent. He's like, a tent? I go, yeah, I wanna get a big tent, and we're gonna bring it out to Garden Spires. We go out to Garden Spires, and we set up this big tent between the two projects where the violence had happened, right smack in the middle. Miss Elaine Sewell comes down, I walk over to Miss Elaine Sewell, and I said, I was like ready, I'm just like apologizing to her. I said, I'm so sorry. I raised my voice, and before I could finish apologizing, this is how good people are. She just grabs me and hugs me. There may have been some tears on her part. And just like, and I said, look, I don't know what to do about the situation out here, I told her, but I'm gonna do something. And I said, I'm gonna live in that tent, and I'm not gonna eat. I'm gonna go on a fast, I'm gonna go on a hunger strike. I won't eat solid food until we figure out what to do. And I said, would you just do me a favor, would you please pray with me? And she says, I'll pray with you. And then I did something that if you ever get into politics, you guys gotta learn how to do this. I called a press conference. and come on, Congresswoman, you know what I'm talking about. Called the press conference. And I just said, this is the United States of America. How can we have such injustice in our country? Parents are afraid to let their children come outside. Where seniors are afraid to walk to the store. And I gave this righteous speech and all of that. And then I went to the tent. And there was like 4 or 5 of us. We prayed in a little circle and we went to bed. That night, I'm not joking, it was scary. There was stuff thrown on the top of our tent from the top floors. Some of the guys who probably were dealing narcotics were not happy about what we were doing. And it got tense. But the next morning I wake up to these big guys coming over to see me in the tent. And they say, are you Cory Booker? And I said, yeah. Who are you? And they said, well, we're correctional officers at the local facility. We saw on the news what you're doing out here. We're not going to let you stay here alone. We're going to stand with you. And that day, after the news reports ran, more people came out. By the end of that day, well over 100 people had come out to be with us. And every day that went on, hundreds and hundreds more came out. We had people, community leaders, ministers, hospitals came out. To this day, I gave a speech recently at the UPS's headquarters because UPS came out, did job fairs and hired people. We had the hospitals doing medical screenings for folks. We had people coming over from New York. Some guy on Wall Street saw what was happening and sent like 700 pizzas out to us, which really ticked me off because I was on a hunger strike. and suburban town, a mayor of a suburban town came down with his officers, brought food. It turned out to be this amazing thing. We ended up having hundreds of kids, like suddenly were coming out from all over the place. We were like running school camps. We had gospel concerts going on. It was unbelievable for that summer. As day after day after day, it just became a center of action in this city. And by the end, by the 10th day of this hunger strike, the mayor of the city came out, my adversary. And I'll never forget, he came out with all his departmental directors, he had a prepared speech, but when I saw him 10 days of fasting and praying, I realized it was never about him. It was about me. I hugged this man. I still remember hugging him. I remember I had never touched him before. It's like we have these enemies, the adversaries. We fail to see their humanity often. But hugging this man, I remember smelling deep. He was my father's age, and he smelled like men from my family. He turns around, Old Spice. Bruce. And then he turns around, he puts away his prepared remarks, and just gives a bold speech. You remember this, he makes a prediction, he literally predicts that I will be mayor of the city, and Ross Barack, which is funny because he's the mayor now too. He literally calls out the next 2 mayors of the city. And he says this is over, he pledges to build a park, he pledges to right where we were standing, this gives us no place to play, and he says he's gonna stop the drug problem. Now I want to tell you the truth. These promises didn't necessarily come to pass. He brought cops out there for months and months and months, but eventually the cops left, and guess what happened? Some of the problems returned. The park was never built until about 10 years later, when I became a mayor, and Mo made sure we built the park then. But that's not the point of the story. The end of the story is this. 2 points. One is we have an infinite capacity that we don't tap into. Infinite capacity. And a lot of the time the barriers are psychological barriers. Does anybody who's older now remember when the 4-minute mile was broken? Okay? It was said to be the impossible barrier, but as soon as it was broken around the world, within the next year it was broken more than a dozen times, which would prove it wasn't a physical barrier, it was a psychological barrier. And the second thing is the power when we do something for somebody else, when we join together with somebody. The moment I'll end with is that last moment when we had our last prayer. Remember, the first time it was just a handful of people praying and shaking, about to go into a long night. The last prayer was 100, 200 people all praying, and everybody was there. There were believers and non-believers standing in that circle. There were Christians, Jews, Muslims. There was imams, priests, rabbis, ministers. All of us, young and old, standing in that circle, praying and shaking, praying, now not shaking, praying and celebrating. And I haven't eaten in 10 days, but I felt stronger than I'd ever felt in my entire life when I joined hands in a circle of other people, common cause, common purpose. And the powerful thing was, when people started praying in Spanish and Hebrew and Arabic and English, I started hearing words of our common history. I heard the words from the old African parable, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. I heard these words from the Christian Bible that said, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name, he is in the midst. I heard these words from a man in Birmingham, Alabama. He wrote them from a jail cell, that we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a common garment of destiny. And I heard these words from a dead language that are the hallmark of a young country still trying to achieve itself, still trying to live up to its promise to be a place of liberty and justice for all. Those words I heard are e pluribus unum, out of the many one. We're on this planet, I believe, for 2 things. One is to tap into that infinite capacity and make the best of ourselves as we can. And the second thing is to join with other people in making this a more just world. Sometimes it's an encouraging word, sometimes it's getting somebody elected. But together there's nothing we can't do. So my prayer for all of us in this room, small group that we are, is we understand that we have infinite capacity, that we're willing to give some things up in order to get the abundance that's waiting for us, and that we find ways to join together for purposes that are greater than ourselves. And I'm telling you right now, the entire planet Earth, I know this because I'm hearing people from the European continent, African continent, people are watching what's happening in Alabama.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Rarely do the stars align in your life where you get to do small things, in elections that might be determined by hundreds of votes, that can have global impact. This is one of those opportunities. And my hopes is between now and Tuesday, you guys decide that I'm going to sacrifice something in order to make a very big change. Thanks, everybody.